We are almost done as far as managing our terms. We are able to create and edit them. Now we just need to be able to delete them. And thankfully, deleting is a lot like editing, at least as far as the setup is concerned. So we're going to start by copying the files that we wrote in the previous lesson. And we will copy the edit controller and we will rename that to delete.php. We also want to copy the view as well. So let's go into views, admin, and then copy the edit view. And we'll start in the controller because that's where, well, we're going to have some pretty significant changes in both of these files. But the most important is going to be in the controller. So let's start there. Now, this is going to be a page that is going to display a question. We don't want to just issue a request and then the term is deleted. We want to ensure that the user wants to delete that item. So we're going to have a GET request. It is going to take the user to our view and it's going to ensure that they want to delete that term. And if they do, then of course it's going to handle the post request as well. So we first of all need to know what item to display. And so we already have that set up where we are sanitizing the key from the query string. We are ensuring that we have a value there. We get the term from our data store and we ensure that we actually have a term. And then we pass that on to the delete view so that we can display that information. And then as far as the post is concerned, we don't need the definition really. All we need is the term itself that we want to delete. So we can get rid of the definition and the original term because we're not editing in this case. We are just submitting a form that has the term that we want to delete. And because we don't have those, we need to remove the checks for those as well. And then the function that we will call is delete term, and the only thing that we need to pass to it is the term that we want to delete. So that should be it as far as our controller is concerned. So let's go to our view and let's go ahead and add in the question if the user is sure that they want to delete this. So I'm going to add another div with a class of row and we'll just say, are you sure you want to delete? And then we will output the key here, or the term itself. And we have that with our model and its term property. So there is that. And as far as our form is concerned, we don't need any type of input. We're just asking a question, are you sure you want to delete it? And then if they submit that form, then yes, they want to delete it. So the only information we need is really this hidden field. We can change the name to simply term, and that's it. So we can get rid of our text box and our text area. And then the submit button will just say delete. And let's also change the text in this H1 element. So this should be all that we need to do inside of the view. So now let's just write this delete term function. We go to our app folder inside of data and then file functions. And I guess after the update term, we will have our function for deleting the term. We will accept the term that we want to delete, and just like all of our other functions, we are going to get our terms. Now, in order to delete an item from our terms array, we are going to use a function called unset. We pass in the array and the index that we want to remove. So if we have an index of 2, then that's what we do. And that means we need to know what index that we want to use in order to unset that item. Well, we can get that very easily using a for loop. So we will initialize our for loop with our counter variable. That's going to be I. And we are going to loop for as long as I is less than the count of our terms. So right now we have 4 items in our terms array. So this loop is going to execute 4 times. And then we want to increment our counter. So inside of here, all we really need to do is check to see if our terms at the index of I has a term property that is equal to the term that was provided to the function. And if so, then we want to remove this item, and we do that with unset. We pass in terms at the index of I, and then we just break out because we don't need to process the rest of our array. We've already found the one that we want to unset there. And then we need to write our terms to the file. So we called that set data. So we will call set underscore data, pass in our terms, and there we go. Now there's one other thing that we're going to have to do here, and that is rebuild the array. And I'll show you why here in a moment. In fact, let's go ahead and prepare to do that. I'm going to open up the data file, and I'm going to copy its contents and paste it into this notepad because, well, you'll see what will happen. So now we just need a link so that the admin can go to the delete page and then delete an item. And we created that edit link inside of the index view of admin. So we can do essentially the same thing for delete. Let's just copy that, but let's put the delete link on the other side of the table. That way we don't accidentally click on delete when we actually wanted to edit. And of course, we will change the URL to delete and the text to delete. So now let's just view this in the browser. So if we refresh, we have our delete link. Let's delete JavaScript. So that will take us to our delete page. Are you sure you want to delete? Well, yes. So we delete, and we have successfully deleted that item. But let's look at our data file. Here we have our JSON, but notice that it is completely different. We now no longer have an array. We have an object. And then the properties of this object are the index numbers. We have 0 there, then we have 2, and then we have 3. So here's the reason why. Whenever you use the unset function and you delete an item in the array, it removes that item, but it doesn't reorganize the remaining items. So let's say that we have an array with 3 items. We have index 0, 1, and 2. Now these are indexes, but they are also keys. So if we unset the item with an index of 1, it's going to remove that, but we still have 0 and 2. And it's going to use those as the actual keys. So then it becomes an associative array where the numbers of the index are actually the keys then. So in that case, whenever we re-encoded back into JSON, it uses those keys to refer to the actual object that we were wanting. So that's why we have to rebuild the array. We have to essentially say that, okay, we have unset this item within the array. Now we need you to rebuild this array into a true array, not an associative array. So we can do that with another function simply called array underscore values. What this does is this will take an array as input, and then it will return all of the values from that array and put them into a new array. So we will have this. We'll pass in our terms, and then we will assign this to new underscore terms, and then we will pass on new underscore terms to our set data function. So let's do this again. I'm going to take the data that I had copied before. I'm going to paste that into data.json, and then we will go through that whole process again. So let's go back to the browser. Let's refresh this page. We have JS once again. Let's delete JS, and that successfully deleted. If we go back and look at the data, I don't have to refresh this because it's automatically refreshed, but you can see that we now have a true array in JSON. We have our first item here, CSS, and then after CSS is PHP. You know, it used to be JavaScript, but now it's PHP. And then we have JSON1. So we now have a complete admin portion of our application. The only missing thing is the ability to lock it down so that only authenticated users can access those functions. And we will add that in the next lesson.